This podcast contains discussions of violent and disturbing content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is strongly advised. The views and opinions expressed are for informational and entertainment purposes only and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast's creators, hosts, or affiliated parties. If you or someone you know is in need of support, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional. Coming up in the podcast, Bud say, you know what? I'm gonna stay here a while. And Lindsay's like, you must be mad. What you mean by that? That's how she responded. Like you must be crazy, But and thing and the aliens, them basically use them water powers to generate massive tsunamis and send them to the coast of some major cities, right? Them stop short of decimating answers just moments away. This episode is made possible by listeners like you. Your support means everything. Thank you for tuning in.
Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilizations, we delve into the heart of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captivated audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on Code Flix.
Greetings, fellow sci-fi and fantasy lovers. Welcome to Code Flix, where we explore the TV shows and movies that shape our imaginations. I'm Andre Bonner, and in today's episode, we'll be exploring the depths of the ocean and the human spirit in the abyss. The Abyss is one of those movies that really makes you stop and wonder about the vast, mysterious ocean depths of our world. It's not exactly a horror film, but there are moments intense enough that I found myself looking away. On rewatch, after learning about the grueling filming conditions the crew and cast endured, I gained an even deeper respect for the production. The story follows a civilian diving team brought in to assist the military in searching for a lost nuclear submarine. What they uncover, however, is far stranger and more profound, something that reshapes not just their mission, but their entire understanding of the world. Written and directed by James Cameron, who might as well had starred in it if he was given a chance. The film blends science fiction with the very real unknowns of Earth's oceans. For me, it left a lasting impression, a reminder that some of the greatest mysteries may not lie in the stars, but in the deep right here on our planet.
The Abyss is a 1989 American science fiction film written and directed by James Cameron and starring Ed Harris, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and Michael Biehn. When an American submarine sinks in the Caribbean, a U.S. search and recovery team works with an oil platform crew, racing against Soviet vessels to recover the boat. Deep in the ocean, they encounter something unexpected. The film was released on August 9, 1989, receiving generally positive reviews and grossed $90 million. At the 62nd Academy Awards, it was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, winning Best Visual Effects. In January 1994, the U.S. Ohio-class submarine USS Montana has an encounter with an unidentified submerged object and sinks near the Kaiman Trough. With Soviet ships moving in to try to salvage the sub, and a hurricane moving over the area, the U.S. government sends a SEAL team to Deep Core, a privately owned experimental underwater drilling platform near the Kaiman Trough, to use it as a base of operations. The platform's designer, Dr. Lindsay Brigman, insists on going along with the SEAL team, even though her estranged husband Virgil, Bud Brigman, is the current foreman. During the initial investigation of Montana, a power cut in the team's submersibles leads to Lindsay seeing a strange light circling the sub, which she later calls a non-terrestrial intelligence, or NTI. Lieutenant Hiram Coffey, the SEAL team leader, is ordered to accelerate their mission and takes one of the mini-subs, without Deep Core's permission, to recover a Trident missile warhead from Montana just as the storm hits above, leaving the crew unable to disconnect from their surface support ship in time. The cable crane is torn from the ship and falls into the trench, dragging Deep Core to the edge before it stops. The rig is partially flooded, killing several crew members and damaging its power systems. The crew waits out the storm so they can restore communications and be rescued. As they struggle against the cold, they find the NTIs have formed an animated column of water to explore the rig, which they equate to an alien version of a remotely operated vehicle. Though they treat it with curiosity, Coffey is agitated and cuts it in half by closing a pressure bulkhead on it, causing it to retreat. Realizing that Coffey is experiencing paranoia, as a result of suffering from high-pressure nervous syndrome, the crew spies on him through an ROV, finding him and another SEAL arming the warhead to attack the NTIs. To try to stop him, Bud fights Coffey, but Coffey escapes in a mini-sub with the primed warhead. Bud and Lindsay give chase in the other sub, damaging both. Coffey is able to launch the warhead into the trench, but his sub drifts over the edge and implodes from the pressure, killing him. Bud's mini-sub is inoperable and taking on water. With only one functional diving suit, Lindsay ups to drown and hopefully enter deep hypothermia when the ocean's cold water engulfs her, with hopes of being able to be resuscitated. Bud swims back to the platform with her body. There, he and the crew use a defibrillator and administer CPR, and they revive her. It is decided that they need to disarm the warhead, which is more than 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers, below them. One SEAL, Ensign Monk, helps Bud use an experimental diving suit equipped with a liquid-breathing apparatus to survive to that depth, though he will only be able to communicate through a keypad on the suit. Bud begins his dive, assisted by Lindsay's voice to keep him coherent against the effects of the mounting pressure, and he reaches the warhead. Monk guides him in successfully disarming it. With little oxygen left in the system, Bud explains that he knew it was a one-way trip, and he tells Lindsay he loves her. As he waits for death, an NTI approaches Bud, takes his hand, and guides him to a massive alien city deep in the trench. Inside, the NTIs create an atmospheric pocket for Bud, allowing him to breathe normally. The NTIs then play back Bud's message to his wife, and look at each other with understanding. On Deep Core, the crew is waiting for rescue, when they see a message from Bud that he met some friends and warns them to hold on. The base shakes, and lights from the trench herald the arrival of the alien ship. It rises to the ocean's surface, with Deep Core and several of the surface ships run aground on its hull. The crew of Deep Core exits the platform, surprised they are not dead from the sudden decompression. They see Bud walking out of the alien ship, and Lindsay races to hug him. Special Edition. In the extended version, the events in the film are played against a backdrop of conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, with the potential for all-out war. The sinking of Montana fuels the aggression. Additionally, there is more conflict between Bud and Lindsay in regard to their former relationship. The primary addition is the ending. When Bud is taken to the alien ship, the aliens begin by showing him images of war and aggression from news sources around the globe. The aliens then create massive megatsunamis that threaten the world's coasts, but stop them short before they hit. Bud asks why they spared the humans, and they show Bud his message to Lindsay before bringing him, the alien ship, and deep core to the surface. Here are a list of themes and symbols from the film. Themes: fear of the unknown versus curiosity. The crew's encounter with mysterious deep-sea life reflects humanity's instinct to fear what it doesn't understand, contrasted against a drive to explore and learn. Human conflict versus cooperation. Cold War tensions and mistrust among military and civilian crews highlight how human divisions can jeopardize survival. Sacrifice and redemption. Personal sacrifice, especially in crisis, is portrayed as a transformative act that brings reconciliation and understanding. Communication and connection. Miscommunication between humans mirrors the challenge of communicating with truly alien intelligence, stressing empathy as a universal bridge. Technology as tool or threat. Advanced machines, both human and alien, are shown as double-edged, capable of saving lives or escalating conflict depending on intent. Symbols: the abyssal depths represent the subconscious, the unknown, and buried fears that must be confronted. Water, a recurring image of both danger and life, symbolizing transformation, cleansing, and rebirth. The alien light constructs embody hope, higher intelligence, and the possibility of peaceful coexistence. Pressure and confinement. The crushing deep-sea environment mirrors psychological and political tension among the crew. Conclusion: the Abyss uses its deep-sea setting to explore humanity's tendency toward fear and conflict when facing the unknown, while suggesting that empathy, sacrifice, and open communication can lead to enlightenment and survival. The alien presence becomes less an external threat and more a mirror reflecting humanity's own moral depths. Here's a full breakdown of The Abyss, 1989, with its key characters, arcs, and themes. Bud Brigman, Ed Harris. Role: foreman of the Deep Core underwater drilling platform. Traits: steady, compassionate, highly skilled, natural leader. Arc: begins as a no-nonsense blue-collar worker estranged from his wife. Through crisis, he proves his courage, emotional depth, and willingness to sacrifice himself for others. Key moments: keeps the crew calm after contact with unknown life forms. Volunteers for a one-way dive with liquid breathing to disarm a nuke. Reconciles with Lindsay through shared crisis. Themes: heroism in ordinary people, love as motivation, calm leadership under pressure. Lindsay Brigman, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Role: designer of the Deep Core platform and Bud's estranged wife. Traits: brilliant, headstrong, bluntly honest, fiercely dedicated to her work. Arc: her professional pride initially isolates her, but her partnership with Bud reawakens her ability to trust and love. Key moments: identifies that the unknown beings, NTIs, are peaceful. Sacrifices herself by drowning so Bud can save her. Supports Bud during his deep dive mission emotionally via comms. Themes: reconciliation, love and respect overcoming ego. Lieutenant Hiram Coffey, Michael Bean. Role: Navy SEAL leader sent to recover a sunken nuclear warhead. Traits: paranoid, increasingly unstable under pressure at depth. Arc: his descent into pressure-induced psychosis, HPNS, leads to reckless decisions, violence, and an attempt to detonate the warhead against perceived threats. Key moments: direct conflict with Bud over mission priorities. Nearly kills the crew by flooding compartments. Dies in a submersible crash after a high-speed chase. Themes: militarism versus humanity, fear of the unknown, danger of rigid thinking. The NTIs, non-terrestrial intelligences. Role: advanced aquatic life forms deep in the Kaiman Trough. Traits: peaceful, technologically superior, curious about humanity. Arc: observe humans' capacity for both violence and love. They test humanity's worthiness, but ultimately choose compassion, saving Bud and the crew. Key moments. First contact through luminous water tentacle. Massive rising structure at the finale. Rescuing Bud from drowning and returning the crew to safety. Themes: higher intelligence judging humanity, compassion over destruction, communication across divides. Crew members: catfish, one night, hippie, etc. Role: provide camaraderie, human warmth, and occasional comic relief. Traits: loyal, adaptable, show courage under extreme pressure. Themes: community and teamwork in crisis, the strength of ordinary people. Here's a detailed overview of the production and design. James Cameron's The Abyss is legendary for its groundbreaking underwater production and technical innovations. Its creation was as much an engineering feat as a cinematic one, blending practical sets, revolutionary visual effects, and intense real-world conditions. 1. Filming challenges and underwater production. Main set in an abandoned nuclear plant. Most of the film was shot in a 7 million-gallon tank built inside an unfinished nuclear power plant in Gaffney, South Carolina. This allowed the filmmakers to shoot long underwater sequences in controlled conditions, though controlled is relative, because the work remained grueling. Difficult working environment. Cast and crew spent hours underwater daily, sometimes 12+ hours at a time. Actors, including Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, performed many of their own dives. Harris nearly drowned during one sequence and later described the shoot as psychologically and physically exhausting. Communication was done via underwater microphones and helmets with full face masks to allow dialogue recording. Lighting the depths. Cameron insisted the underwater world feel dark yet visible. Massive custom-built lighting rigs were submerged in the tank to mimic deep-sea luminescence while keeping visibility for the camera. 2. Set and production design. Deep-sea rig, deep core. Production designer Leslie Dilley built a full-scale underwater drilling platform, complete with airlocks, cramped corridors, and functional control rooms. The rig had to withstand real submersion while looking futuristic but believable. Miniature work. Scale models were used for some wide shots of the rig and submersibles. These miniatures were filmed underwater to achieve natural fluid movement. Authenticity of equipment. Helmets, diving suits, and control systems were designed to look rugged and industrial, avoiding anything too sci-fi sleek. 3. Groundbreaking visual effects. Pioneering CGI. The film's most famous effect, the water tentacle, pseudopod, was one of the earliest major uses of computer-generated imagery, CGI, in film. Created by Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, the pseudopod featured realistic water textures and reflections. This technology directly paved the way for CGI breakthroughs in Terminator 2, Judgment Day, 1991, and Jurassic Park, 1993. Blend of practical and digital. Most of the alien craft sequences used miniatures combined with motion control photography, while the aliens themselves relied heavily on lighting tricks rather than full CGI. 4. Director's drive for realism. James Cameron's demanding methods. Known for his obsession with authenticity, Cameron pushed both himself and the crew to extremes. He personally dived with cameras, adjusted lights underwater, and monitored oxygen safety levels. On-set tensions. The intense shoot caused major stress among cast and crew. Both Harris and Mastrantonio have publicly described it as one of the hardest projects of their careers. 5. Post-production and extended edition. Original versus special edition. The theatrical release in 1989 trimmed significant story elements about the aliens and their warning to humanity. In 1993, Cameron released a special edition restoring tilde 30 minutes, including more alien footage, and a clearer, environmental warning theme. Sound design. Gary Ridstrom created an immersive underwater soundscape, balancing realism, muted, muffled tones, with cinematic clarity. 6. Legacy of the Abyss. Technical impact. First convincing photorealistic CGI water effect. Advanced underwater filming techniques now standard in the industry. Awards. Won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. Nominated for Best Cinematography, Best Sound, and Best Art Direction. Influence. Inspired future Cameron projects, Titanic, Avatar, where deep water or immersive environments are central.
So here are my personal insights and interpretations of The Abyss, including some of my favorite moments and characters. So obviously this movie had two cuts, right? The original cut for the theatrical release and the special edition cut, right? Which would have been extended a further 10 minutes or so based on what there was. Right. And of course, I will be covering that as well in this deep dive. All right. So in the opening, we see a U.S. Navy nuclear submarine, right? The USS Montana. And it is patrolling the Cayman Throw. So what happened is that them come upon something weird, a weird contact, when they're checking their instrumentation and stuff. One of the characters that is there, Barnes, Lieutenant Barnes, he also played a character in Stargate SG-1 Atlantis, I believe. So, there's a lot of roots, in sci-fi, even in this. And then the big man, James Cameron, right, who I mentioned is the director and the writer of this film, boy, there's a lot to get into that. So I'll leave that for later. But yeah, the sub lose power after this weird glowing object moving at some impossible speeds underwater, right? So obviously, there is no way, right? Their instrumentation, might be giving them some problem or giving them wrong reading, because when they encounter this thing, and, basically it leaves some turbulence in the water, right? Passing through the space that they are, it just, caused the whole sub to shake. And it got out of control from them and crashed into the trench wall, right? Which they were close already to it already. So, the next thing would have happened would have definitely caused that to happen. Anyways, so after it sinks to the floor, one of the guys they were taking on water. So one of the crewmen, tell them to deploy the buoy, right? Which is a device that they use in submarines to essentially signal their location, right? So basically, once he told them that, hey, we need to deploy it, everybody on the, there realized, boy, this was it. There was nothing else that they could do. They were going to sink and they needed some assistance, right? And of course, many of the men would have drowned because of the water that they were taking on so fast, and the sub implode basically. So the US Navy then plan a rescue and salvage mission, right? Using a deep undersea drilling platform, which they call deep core, right? And that's what they would have done. In many cases, it is that the military or, they would subcontract out to contractors that work on those drilling platforms because they're already in place. They're in a close enough location, proximity, so that they can do the rescue mission, right? So the military, they deploy a team to go to the platform to meet up with the crew, right? The platform crew is headed by Virgil Bud Brigham, right? I'll be calling him Bud from now on, right? No, but basically from the get-go, seemed to be a strong character because like say, hey, listen, he's played by Ed Harris, by the way, right? Who we would have covered in a previous podcast. Right. So he basically tell him, say, anything that's gonna happen with this crew has to do with it have to basically go through me. Right? That is basically how we present it, right? No, he has his estranged wife, which is Lindsay Brigham. She come in and basically be like, she had a platform designer, she designed the thing, and she have a certain kind of ownership over it. When you design something or you work on something and it's your baby, basically your pet peeve, you don't want nobody to use it willy-nilly and without care, right? And so she was very upset with him, right? And of course, because they were in a relationship, obviously it comes through because their relationship, you can see from the get-go, is very, very strained, right? Because especially because she is just about, hey, we just need this thing I'm coming aboard. She went aboard the submarine and she go aboard and thing and, I start issue orders about what is to happen with her baby, right? And so, but because, he wanted to at least hear from her some humanity in terms of, hey, your reason why you come is because want to be close to me. You want to make sure that I'm okay. But apparently, she wasn't having it. She not give him that benefit of the doubt, whatever it is, right? Whatever they had is not the same thing here, right? Now, we get to see some of the crew, there and thing get introduced to persons like Catfish, One Night, Hippie, Jammer, and some of the others, right? Now, the SEAL team is headed by this man who apparently, you can see from the get-go, say he's very shaky. You can see it from the get-go. I mean, when I saw the man, I'm like, yo, this man look shaky and him not look too righteous upstairs, right, in his head. So, him going there and thing, and basically I tell him, say, because he's supposed to be supervising it, right? He's not in command of anybody down there, right? Because they're not military personnel there, apart from who we bring, right? So, of course, them use the underwater crane, deep core, for go as close as possible, get in line with where the wreck sub is, and they conduct the mission, right? Now, while going on that mission, you could have seen that Jama was definitely not for it. Jama was, from him see dead body afloat out in the water, right? Because them open one of the sub compartment, and when him look in there, dead body that float out on them, man start panic, right? I breathe heavy, and I remember, you're wearing scuba gear and them thing there. You have to conserve your oxygen. You can't be breathing too deeply because you waste oxygen. So this man basically out of it, right? Now, we also saw that Bud and Lindsay, them have that little argument there and thing, and then Bud basically threw his ring, right? This is a good part. Him threw him ring into one of the onboard toilet, and him have to basically like dig back for it because it's like him reconsider, second thought, him block the door, and gone, and then him come back inside of the lavatory, and him have to dig down into the toilet now for the ring again. That I think was very, very comical. Yeah. Now, as I said, back on the SOA and the rescue mission. So, the Jama basically say, yo, listen, I can't go any further because me can't take this. Me I get panic over what one, and so we're not going any further. So Bud tell him, say, all right, don't go any further. Stay right here. If you find that you need any help or any assistance, just tug on this rope, right, that is tied to me, and I will come back and take. Now,
Jama left there in the dark, and thing. Them gonna go investigate and thing, and Coffee was able to find the Coffee is the leader of the SEAL team. He was able to find and locate one of the subs nuclear bomb, and so basically, the him and him subordinate, they basically take that, right? Jama start to get a little bit paranoid because when him there now wait, him light start flicker in and out, right? And basically so till it go off totally. And when it went off totally, all of a sudden him starts say a figure approach him in the water. Now you're there in the water, and you already panicked. You wonder what is up with this weird light. Your light gone by your equipment that you have on. Because everybody have a special thing that allows them to light up and in the water. And if see this thing start approaching him, probably thinks say a bud. So he's like, "Is that you, bud?" But him not hear no response because all along him a be able to communicate, but all of a sudden him can't get a direct answer from bud. And then him start panic, him pull pan the rope, pull pan the rope so till a rope snap pan him. Now when he said the rope snap pan him, and this him panic even further. My guy start run now because there's a door that they were coming through, right? And so him rushing back to the door and thing and end up hit is, I guess it's the regulator for the oxygen and thing, and it caused a spike in oxygen that when Bud and the other guys them come, cause them like, "Come in, Jama, we hear you," and thing, and them start hear him now. They reach him, he was convulsing uncontrollably, right? And so them have to hurry up and get him out and thing, and get themselves out of the situation. So they eventually get out of the water and back onto the platform and thing. And when they look him over, they realize that Jama basically in a coma, right? Nothing we can do for him but to just try and treat him because none of them have any medical doctor or anything like that down there, right? Of course, Coffee is basically showing that him under some pressure because, they had initially gone through all sort of something. So I guess he's wound tight, right? Now, little after that, no, of course, Lindsay end up doing one of the dives, right? And she goes to a point there to do some work in the suit and so on in the water. And she encounters the same alien, the very same one, right? I must mention before that, she was in the submarine, right? And she would have seen when that same alien, but I'm going to call it the NTIs, right? The NTIs came, and thing, and same effect. Turn off all of the lights in the sub, everything shut down and things. So she can't video nothing, she can't take a picture of nothing, right? And, she basically, see the NTI, and she have to describe that now to the crew who thinks that she's being hysterical or that she's under stress, similar to the kind of stress that many persons who go on those long missions in submarines or, underwater go through, right? So not long after, there is a great crisis and a storm is coming, right? It's a hurricane and it's striking abrupt, right? Which means that the ship that is holding the crane in place to the drilling platform will have to move, right? So it would have to disconnect and all of those things, right? So, of course, because the military man them decides they want to go and retrieve the nuclear bomb, right? One of the nuclear ordnance them decide them going to go there and, in the middle of the storm, after them tell them, say, listen, one storm up there now, we need to disconnect. Well, but they weren't listening anyways, right? Because them turn off them communication and all of that. So either, them just nobody care at that time, but them they just care about fulfilling their mission based on what they were told, right? Which I think is a dumb idea, because I'm thinking that in certain circumstances, military protocol must dictate at some point, say, hey, listen, this is where, the extenuating circumstances, harm to a crew, right? A civilian crew, and I like say a military crew where you can say, all right, certain things, whatever. And we understand it is a crucial moment, right? In the whole thing, because you're not sure what is out there. You think that probably some Russian sub might come and steal, right, your secrets. If them get your sub, them can basically turn it upside down and figure out what they need to figure out in order to counteract, right? And yeah, that's the kind of level of thinking I think was going on, right? Or the idea in this film. But to say that you're gonna basically put that up against the lives of crew members, that does not make no sense to me, right? Anyways, so the inevitable happens. The crane and the cable snap, right? It actually, member of the crew was actually operating the crane above on the ship, and he ended up go over with the crane and everything in the water, which very, very sad, right? That ends up causing now the platform to get taken out of place. There's a big trench, right? And basically start pull it all the way over to the. So immediately, you think that, hey, the whole entire platform will go over in a trench, But of course, they were lucky enough that it decided to stop. It decided to stop partially over the edge of the trench. Right? It partially flooded out most of the platform and stuff, so they have to seal off certain areas. Some of the crew members get drowned, right? There's this one point where the ring come back as a thing because that's Bud's ring, right? Because him never on him ring. Can you imagine if him did left it in the toilet, it wouldn't end up saving his life. Because he basically try to hold back the door, right? And so his ring, fat enough to be around his finger, he put that hand there and the door basically jump up against the ring. I can't move him hand and everything there. At one point I was like, I wonder if him fingers are get snapped off, Is this going to be one of those gory films? But then, he was able to call for help from some of the crew members and they came and helped him to pry the door open. So, luckily him have the ring for kind of hold door off for a good little while, right? Yeah. So, of course, communication is lost because them now have no way to communicate with up there other than to use radio, and that not too perfect in this time because of the hurricane, right? And all of that. So, them basically depend on them own, right? Now, Coffee start to develop or show the signs because he had the high pressure nervous syndrome, right? HPNS from the get-go, right? Because him did hand in that shake right after him done tell them say everybody is cool, him hand that shake. But we can see that him get very paranoid, right? And him believes say that the glowing entities where Lindsay say was basically, some Soviet threats. We don't know how it work out in a theme head, but yeah, now I think clearly, so of course that is, right? It's revealed that them have some orders to prevent the technology from falling into enemy hands, which means using the nuclear device, right? The nuclear warhead. So yeah, that no sound too good. And how them find out, the other rest of crew find out is that I believe one of the crew members, him the spy on them using one of the submarines. Him take the little submarine and carry it, go right up to the window at the section of the platform where him can see that they were actually, that's Coffee and the other military guy was there working on the nuke, right? Yeah. Basically arm it and everything. So yeah, right after that, everybody decided to go sleep, right? Of course, everybody tired and thing and whatever. Most of the crew, decide to go sleep and thing. And, Lindsay's the last one to come in. There was this little funny moment where Buddy's sleeping and he's snoring. And it's funny to me because I totally understand, right? She tells him to turn on his side, right? And of course, he responds. And that moment, I think, when Cameron they put that in, and basically shows us the audience, say, hey, these two, even though they are estranged to one another, they obviously had a relationship where they understood those, them little subtlety there. That's basically just, make it just say, hey, and then being a man who was experienced in that life, wedding and marriage life, you understand that, those little things show that there's a little bit of concern, for one another, right? Even though she was behaving a little bit frigidity and cold, Yeah. And then that, awesome moment where the NTI basically send like a probe with water, right? So they're able to control water and it come up through the moon pool and go through the corridors and end up going where the crew were sleeping, right? And Lindsay, she was sitting up basically, but she was half asleep. And she see it and she wake Bud, and then Bud wake one night, and then one night wake the other crew member over there. And everybody is like surprised. They couldn't do nothing. Them just stood up, the stunned, looking at this water, farming out their faces, and mimicking them in the most weird way. I mean, I would be freaked out seeing something like that, in real life. I mean, I say, yo, me no know water for do that. And how would water be able to do that? You know what I'm saying? A whole heap of questions will come up. So, you know what I'm saying? Hats off to them to be able to keep their control and them cool and thing. Lindsay showed empathy in not just being initially skeptical and, rushing to attack it in that way, but, she was like, this must be how they're trying to communicate. Anyways, it decided to make a reverse and go to where the nuke is in the quarters, right? Where Coffee and in Soldier One there. Now, they weren't there, right? And apparently, little after them come see it, right? I go through, them decide to lock the door on it, basically, right? And in them locking the door on it, the water separate from itself and fall, right? Because them basically was scared because this pushed Coffee over the edge now, basically, because I say, yo, this definitely seem like something, I don't understand. And if I don't understand, it means, I must Soviet them or I must something. So, him plans them basically escalate. Him basically sure now say, him going go on for attack first and ask questions later, right? So, then basically, him and him, the guy was like, hey, we're going to launch upon them before they can, because him believes say him do the best thing. The man even not tell him say, yo, just cool down, boss. Maybe you need to take a rest and thing. I was like, we can't rest with all this going. We have to get this thing done today. So, and basically, them get them guns and thing and them go for the crew, make sure say everybody got in a one place, lock them up, right? There's a moment where Coffee basically take duct tape and duct tape Lindsay, can say she chat too much, basically that's what him basically say. Yeah, and him fling her in the same place everybody with the crew and everybody. No, with everybody out there and thing, there was nobody to defend or protect them, and them a beg and I tell him, say, listen, if you do this, it'll go cause a problem because you know, you detonate the nuke, we're not there far enough away from, you know, the epicenter for it to not affect us too, right? We are going to be in it, you know what I'm saying? So why would you take our lives as well, you know? So we just see the door open, and surprise, surprise, Jama, who had been in a coma, him wake up, right? And him take out one of the crew member them. One of the other one that was one of the SEAL members, I mean. One of them was injured and thing, but he basically try appeal to reason, took him and say, yo, you know, I'm appeal to the other guy, but the other guy was like, no, me I follow orders too. Cause, you know, I believe in our coffee, you know, mission is. We'll be right back after these messages.
Content warning. This episode includes detailed discussions of violence. We strive to handle these topics with care, but some content may be upsetting to certain audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Down here in the dark, the pressure is crushing. But sometimes, you find light where you least expect it. That's what this podcast is. No sponsors, no monetization, just a voice echoing through the depths, reaching for anyone still listening. If it moved you, share it with someone willing to deep dive into the unknown. And leave a comment, like sending us someone our ping. Proof that we're not alone down here. Every listen, every follow, every share is another breath of air when the tank is running low. Because in the deepest places, discovery changes everything. So they basically were able to free them now and thing, but not in enough time for Coffee to be basically lock himself, seal off himself in the moon pool with the submarine, with the nuke tied to it, ready to go and everything. So they're able to see him on the, you know, on one of the video monitors, them and say, in plan for launch and things. So them hatch a plan to basically say, all right, bud, I go, you know, say I go and to where, you know, to try and get the door open, right? So they had a way to go through, which was to go through one hatch where there's someone outside. So it meant going into the water, right? Swimming around there, right? So him and one of the, I think it's Catfish is his name. The two of them swim go to that hatch. And when them swim go to the hatch and them try to open it, it now open. So, but at that point decide, say, the best way to go is to just go directly to the moon pool and come up, right? You have to be very, very careful because that means that, you know, Coffee can see him, right, as soon as him come up. So, yeah. Of course, Catfish can't make it, right? And so, at the time, he was like, yeah, you know, I think we can't make it because we spent. You know what I'm saying? Just swimming around to this part will be spent. And, you know, at that point, while rewatching it and seeing them swim through the water, I mean, I say, this is all done, you know, this is not stunt divers. These are actors that are trained over a period of time for swim. And they had to make it look real. And them swim, right? I mean, like, that part of it does hit home to me. Yeah. So, when Bud surfaces in the moon pool, right, he was able to dodge out aside for a little while and thing, and him try to get out of the water without making a lot of noise. I don't know how much of that he could do because, you know, water does make a lot of noise once you're splashing in it. But he's able to do it probably because Coffee all time head and thing him just because he was like him probably I don't know, him probably just there contemplate how am I gonna do him I do and just a wait for him time or whatever for do him I do. But it was enough time for them to be able to sneak up on him. So him end up come out of the pool now and him approaching Coffee. And him see Coffee gun in him back of him thing there. No, me I say, and many of us, have watched films and be like, why would you do something this stupid? You have to shout at the screen and say, why you not do something that stupid, bud? Him reach off a gun only for alert Coffee to his existence. When him could have just take the thing where him have the crowbar or whatever he had and just knock him. Him just knock him out. They knock him out, he can take the gun. Why try take the gun first? I guess he didn't want to hurt him, unduly. But like seriously, man. Yeah. Anyways, so him end up in a one fight, one big tussle and thing. I remember, it is the moon. The inside of that place is filled with water, so them a bash down and him drop in a water and them a fair, basically a fair swim fight. You know what I'm saying? Cause water does so him have Bud pon the ropes, cause him have one cable him wrap around him neck, ready for strangle him, right? And Bud I go see the white light now. And it's Catfish, right? Who comes to rescue. You know what I'm saying? I guess he built up the courage enough to be able to swim that far and get to the mole pool and him knock him clear, right? And so, while him a tussle and thing, him tell him say, we need to take this thing out and thing, right? Them knock him, them have to get the new car for the thing, cause I'm go launch it and thing. Him jump down, got a Coffee jumping at the submarine and try to get her with it, right? Now, they can't do anything else other than to say, all right, let's just try and open the door and allow access to the room again and thing and to the place and so on, and we'll see what we can do about, this man and thing. So they have to take the other sub, right? So Lindsay jump in a sub and thing and say, all right, we need to go after him and so on, They go after him now, and when they caught up to the little sub with the nuke and thing and disconnect it, right? Ed was able to do it in his diving suit this time, about a diving suit, and him take it and him tie it around part of the platform to keep it from squirting away because, it's on an automatic thing. So at that point now, when my guy there, Coffee, he realized that they might try to him plan and thing, him decide to go off a head, off a Bud. So him go off a Bud now and thing, and just as he's about to take out Bud, right, underwater basically, there is Lindsay. She comes through, right? She comes through for her husband. She come and she knock him submarine to the side and thing, and there's a submarine, underwater submarine fight basically, right? Right. Bud goes aboard the submarine is with Lindsay and thing, and they were chased basically by Coffee in the submarine and thing. And so till the damage had been totally done to both submarines, right? Coffee end up going over the trench, right? Unable to restart the submarine engines and thing. Plummet down the trench, and as in plummet down the trench, of course, the pressure increases in the water, and so it breaks the glass on the submarine and it implodes, right? Killing Coffee. Now, Bud and Lindsay, they end up in a situation where they're too far to be able for both of them to escape alive, right? Granted, Bud had the scuba gear and thing, but Lindsay didn't have anything, right? And so they go back and forth trying to think of different ways them can be able to save both of them. With no way to do it, they end up have to basically say, hey, all right, Lindsay say, hey, you will try and revive me. May I go drown? The reality is, may I go drown? Revive me, right? You have to hurry up and get me body back to the platform and things so them can revive me, right? So they reluctantly, Bud agrees and he takes her when she drowns, right? I don't know why they try to make, but then she can't swim, so they weren't going to even try to put her in the water, right? I assume. So Bud take her body, and as him reach close enough to the platform and able to communicate by radio and tell them say forget themselves ready for help to restore her and thing. Reaching at the moon pool and them try for restore her. A good little time, I mean, chest compressions, One of them YouTuber named Dr. Mike. Yeah, he does that a lot. So yeah, shout out to Dr. Mike, right? If he's listening to the podcast. Anyways, so it was a very emotional scene, to tell you the truth, just to see. Because even though I rewatched this, at that moment I was like, she dead, she dead. Why you beat her? I know it, that she was definitely going to be coming out of it, but just the emotion and just the moment does make you forget that, hey, there's any hope. After a good amount of chest compressions and thing, and Bud seminar give up. You must slap her. Those moves that I'm doing in a film, like, how does the slap work? It always seemed to work. Him slap her and him call her names, right? I'm not going to repeat it, but him call her names, and my lady seemed to hear him and come back from the dead, right? So she goes back from the dead and thing, and, them say, all right, you can see that they're much, much stronger in their bond. Their relationship is a lot more stronger there, right? The strongest it has been in a long while, and, but it's like, the next one is me, basically. It's like him I say, foreshadowing what he's going to do next in the next 10 minutes, right? Because they must have try and find the nuke. Okay, done gone now, So they must have go and find the nuke before they can, save the day, right? So one of the military guy, the same one that was following Coffee, he decides to help now, and them have to trust him because what am I going to do, right? What he's going to do because him can't do anything anymore, right? He was telling them about the PFC, right? So initially in the film, they talked about, that little experiment that they did with one of the crewmates, them mice, put it in one fluid. Basically, that fluid is able to absorb a certain amount of oxygen. And so if theoretically the organism, the mice, is able to basically take in that fluid and can breathe, right? In the fluid, right? Of course, it's a very uncomfortable experience. So it's almost like drowning. So Bud had to undergo that same thing, right? And, they basically have to prep him and tell him, say, hey, you're not going to be able to even talk because, of course, you have fluid in your lungs and them something. So you won't be able to, your vocal cords won't even work, right? So you're going to have to type, right? So they give him a device and can communicate for type on and send them messages, instant messenger back in 1980 something, right? I'm just saying, right? It's a little, primitive, but hey, it worked, right? So, undergoes all of that and thing, and, he goes, everybody being a little bit reluctant and thing, and you have this great scene of, like, the camera looking up at the crew, everybody is looking underwater, and it looking up under as Bud descends. So we get that view from Bud's perspective. Everybody just looking at him like, Bud, Anyways, then Bud goes to the trench, edge of the trench, and you can see the hesitancy. I mean, this is the thing about film, you know, man, that you have a big up, you know, because this a part that just make it just say, yo, you feel the weight of the scene. And then he goes over the edge, right? And of course, he had some weighted stuff on him they gave him to make sure that he sinks, you know, with the submarine, right? So as he goes down in the dark, them try to talk to him. Them tell Lindsay, say, talk to him, you know, make sure say him understand, you know, make sure say he's still with us. Keep him with us, right? Because if you stop talk to him probably just zone out and just crash, right? So as he continues to go down, he basically start to experience some HPNS, right? Because the pressure start to get to him and thing and stuff. So as he was communicating, instant messaging them and stuff and about, you know, different things, start to see him, you know, just like when somebody slur them speech and start slur in his communication, right? So there's like, okay, it seemed like him go him out, and you know, him a go out and thing. I mean, this is a long sequence, you know, right? That scene was a long sequence of him just going down, and then he messages, "I'm feeling better," basically. And they're like, "Oh, him probably hallucinate now. He must see lights." Him tell them, say, "I'm feeling better," and him seeing lights. From his perspective, he's seeing the alien city down below. Right? Well, not seeing that yet. He's just seeing lights at this point, but it's the lights from the alien city. But him find the nuke now, right? And so he asks them how him can disarm it and things. So them tell him, say, cut the wire, man. That wire there with the color. I think it's yellow with stripes or something like that, they said. And of course, when he's looking at it and us at the audience looking at it, it's not yellow with any stripes on it. So he doesn't know which one to cut. So he has to do one of those things where it's a eeny, meeny, miny, moe thing. Like, bro, I don't know how I could do something like that. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, man, you know, starting to cut one of them, and then it's like him last minute, him saying, no, cut the other one. And it turns out to be the right one, right? After him cut it and thing, him basically tell Lindsay, say, hey, me did know say this is a one-way trip, right? Because they ask him to tell them what his oxygen reading is now, and him only have 5 more minutes. And the way how him takes so long to reach down where him there at the depth, them say, no, you're not gonna make it, right? There's no way you can make it and thing. But they were still trying to be hopeful because them that say, all right, if him drop him weights, it will just float back up, right? And even if him half dead or half drowning, they can try and resurrect him just like Lindsay. But Bud say, you know what? I'm gonna stay here a while. And Lindsay's like, you must be mad. What you mean by that? That's how she responded. You know, like, you must be crazy, you know. But, you know, and thing, and little after that now, an NTI appears to Ed. And it is almost, it looks kind of mystically, magically kind of thing. You know, that's kind of thing that it portrays. Right? I can't believe that it was a CG. Can you believe it was a CG? If you watch a film, you realize that it does look so crazy. It, you know, they didn't use CG, they just used lights. All right? They use lights and them use some things to kind of make it. I tell you, almost magic them people that was working, man. Anyways, so it appears to him and it seems to stretch out its claw, hand, whatever you want to call it, because it's a 3, it'll seem to have 3 fingers, right? The standard alien look, right? But it had some wings like a butterfly, and it's had, you know, it kind of lit up, luminous all around. So it took him to the city, right? And basically, it's almost like a fly underwater, the way it hold him. You know, in Superman where Lois is being held by Superman and then at one point him hold her hand and it almost like says she fly without any support, right? She's, that's the way how him look. And him fly right over the city, right? Underwater him there, I'm just using that word to give you the visual there because I'm telling you, it's crazy. He ends up going to it take him through this thing like a tunnel. And I kept thinking to myself when I saw him going through this tunnel, it's almost like watching 2001 A Space Odyssey and the actor, the character that is being taken on the journey through the wormhole, right, is just like seeing all these amazing lights and stuff all around him. Yeah, that's just how it looked, right? And then it takes him and drops him off in a room, basically. And just like how, the Bible depicts where the water was parted by Moses raising the staff, I see him so the water does part and Bud was able to take off the suit and he was able to breathe air, right? And that's another thing about that, But anyways, in there, so now the alien bring him friends, basically. And it communicated by showing on one of the water walls his messages. So when him that talk to him wife and he's like him that say, love you wife, I think that was one of his last message. It show him all of that, and thing. And he realized it a try communicate with him in, the language that it sees that him using. So, that was good for him. Anyways, of course, the other persons, them in the platform, them are run out of air and thing. The storm had come above on the surface, and so they're able to get communication with the ship, and it come back in position, trying to ensure say everybody's still there or whatever. And basically, them tell them say, hey, we're out of air, and we need some assistance, and I know how long we're gonna be able to. But they're cut off in the middle of that when Bud sends his instant message to them saying they should hold on to their pantyhose, right? Which he was really talking directly to Lindsay now, right? But in basically I say, don't be frightened. I am coming basically with these aliens, right? Something you're gonna like this basically. And the entire city, right, raises up from underneath, bringing the platform to the surface. And the ship and everything that on top of it as well. Now, usually, like we saw in the first few moments when the military guys and Lindsay came to the platform underneath, they had to go into a decompression chamber, right? Which is to basically help them body to adjust to the pressures, right, under there. But now, them end up on the surface instantaneously and they're not dead. Their heads are not popping off, right? So everybody's like, yo, something weird about this. We probably the aliens them do us something. And then Bud appears coming out of one of the alien thingies, their cave kind of thing on the surface of the thing. Yeah. It's weird to describe how it looks. It kind of look like one of them aircraft hangar. Well, yeah, it's alien, of course, right? And they meet and they hug. And that is the theatrical release, right? But of course, as I mentioned before, I'll be talking about the special edition, the extended, edition, which is a little bit more, the pacing and stuff. There's some of the moments them kind of stretch out a little bit more and thing. In addition to the aliens, them basically use them water powers to generate massive tsunamis and send them to the coast of some major cities, right? Them stop short of decimating, the cities them. But then basically do it as a warning to humanity, say, hey, don't mess with us, We are the alpha here. right? Yeah. But I think I like the theatrical version better. Yeah, I like that nice little ending. Wraps things up in a nice little bow. The other ending would have needed, to me, it would have needed a little bit more in like a second movie or, something, some follow up, you know? And I mean, at that time, probably they didn't have the funds and things. So them say, you know what, we're not going to put this in the theatrical release. We're going to keep this to ourselves. Yeah. And doing the same thing that James Cameron has done for many years. He always does have his long extended versions, right? And usually sometime him get him way and him get the long extended version release, right? But otherwise sometimes, production companies aren't like, hey, we want this long thing, we don't think audiences are gonna love such a long film. And of course, this definitely would have been even a good ending, same way, for even a second movie to be, because the second movie could have been, set in the future, or, where humanity is working alongside the aliens, right? And you see, the thing about this movie, it didn't really specify that they were aliens in the fact, say, most time you think about aliens coming from outer space. It left it open for you to interpret that, hey, these are aliens that, live on Earth, right? Or probably they have been here, right? Probably they are the precursor to humanity, right? Who to say? But they went there to the deep to live when they saw how humanity was evolving, and them say, make them evolve to a state where they are ready for us. Like a lot of sci-fi movies and series have done, is to say, hey, humanity needs to grow up in order for aliens to take us seriously. Because if aliens was to come see what going on TV and the news and all of that and be like, do we want to treat one another, especially people who are inferior? We don't want to be in that. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're not going to treat for people, humanity, fellow humans this way, yeah, we don't want any part of that. Anyways, that's my analysis and interpretations of this film.
So here are my theories about unresolved mysteries and some plot points. So obviously, some of the most questionable things about this film is the nature and the origin of the NTIs, right? Non-terrestrial intelligence. So the water-like beings, right? Their true origins and biological nature, them never get fully explained, because obviously it's not like say they were able to take one and probably have a full conversation with them, or do any interaction outside of the water, right? So the film leaves those hints for say, yeah, they are highly advanced from the fact that they have capabilities that we as human beings have not discovered or can't possibly do. And they seem to be very peaceful, right? Because if they do want war, obviously they could have killed everybody, because they control the water. They could have just take them out, right? And so you wonder what it is that they would hope to accomplish now, right? If we were there, what would be our motives, right? Why would we show ourselves, make ourselves known, right? At this point, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of paranormal and scientific interpretations that can be taken, right? the fact that they are able to manipulate the water and they are able to create some physical forms, right? Which it kind of blur the boundary between mystical and scientific. You know, it's a great debate to have, because when I'm watching this film, I definitely get the sense that this film was trying to be both sci-fi and spiritual in a sense, right? Because it gave you the opportunity to basically see the perspective of them being this benevolent race, right? And the way how them just show this compassion even after certain hostile moves. 'Cause after Coffee do that, many things say things could have escalate based on how the theatrical release went. Of course, the way how the extended version went into it, it seemed like they were basically saying, "Hey, we don't come in war, but if we need to, we can wipe them out easily." Now, you have the HPNS impact, right? High pressure nervous syndrome. Coffee was on a mental breakdown from the get-go, right? When I think say it happened just when he went on this mission, right? Or just when he went to do the rescue, right? And the retrieval. It felt like it was something that needed to be answered in certain ways, right? Why is it that him did already under that impact already from the get-go? From him come down to the platform, he was there, right? Probably it is linked to PTSD. Probably he was on certain missions and them take him off of the mission, them put him on a mission here. Who knows? Those are some things that I think the film wasn't able to get into, obviously, because of how it would be. And if it was able to, it would have given us some sense of where he was, and how he got to where to where he is. He ended up, right, being killed because he was apparently fearful, highly fearful of what these NTIs were and what all of that was all about, right? God, that escalated things. Now, we mentioned the mega tsunamis and the global threat, right, in the special edition. So it was triggered as a way to punish humanity, right? And the fact that Bud and Lindsay was able to be the emotional drivers for that appeal, it raises some questions about what humanity's worth and how humanity's impact on environmental stewardship is like. So I felt like that was the message that probably James Cameron was trying to portray, right? We need to take a serious look at how or we treat our environment, because we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know what ecosystems we are impacting, and whether some of the things that we just put to the side are unnecessary or necessary. Because if they didn't know that by causing nuclear threats or bombs or whatever or blowing up things in the ocean was harming other life in that way, right? Because human beings, we tend to think of ourselves as superior, right? But we forget that the other creatures that we inhabit this world with, they contribute to the way how it is, right? So it doesn't take a highly advanced, technologically advanced intelligence for us to be able to say, hey, we need to actually look at it. But perhaps for so many, right, for many of us, we need to be persuaded. And so this would have been why they even went that lengths to do a global threat, basically to say, hey, wake up humanity, wake up. And then there is Bud and Lindsay's relationship dynamics, right? While them estranged, right? Their eventual reconciliation are the key personal threads, right? And so there would have been some hope of it being more explored. There are certain little things, as I said, I could point out because I've experienced, right? I would get tired of saying that I'm married, right? But other persons, can relate to, and, even if you're not married, even if you're in a common law or you're in just, being with someone, right? There are certain things you can recognize that you can say, hey, there's definitely something to this thing. There's more to this trauma. There's more to the stress of, work and, because many of us, we work Monday to Friday, right? And we basically don't see our spouses, even though we go home to them. But when we go home, we're so tired. We just go and sleep, right? And we don't have no time for one another. And so it feels as if we are just in a relationship on the weekends and in the week we are at work, right? And so we can see that with how Lindsay was basically treating Bud in the initial stage. But then you see she had an appreciation for him. She had so much an appreciation for him that she eventually had to confess it out loud to the world, let everybody know, say, hey, you know? So I think there could have been a little bit more that could have been, of course, it would have added on the time to the film, based on the other things. But yeah, there's always room for that kind of thing, right? And then finally, the realism in the technology, right? So when I talk about the PFC, that experimental liquid breathing suit, yes, there is such a substance. Yes, it does do what it does with the mice, but it's not necessarily something that is applicable to humans because of our complex system, right? Our body and all of that. It, it requires a lot of work, and something like that is not something, to my knowledge, up to this day, we haven't been able to achieve a process that we'll be able to use something like that to make it a reality in the film, just as how Bud was able to use it. Yeah. So that's it. Those are my theories. What are your theories? Share your theories in the comments. And if you don't have any theories, you can always share the podcast with someone that might have theories on these things. When you watch the film, and you can come back to the podcast and listen it and say, oh, I identify with these parts. Or you can listen to the podcast and then go watch it. And you can say, hey, these are the reasons why Andre said this. And this is why I don't agree. Or Andre make up stuff here. This don't make no sense. So please share in the comments. Let me know what you think. So in this episode, we looked at and explored the depths of the oceans and the human spirit. And that's quite a thing, isn't it? Because what is it that makes us human is empathy, emotions. And the film tried to show us that, hey, these are core concepts that can be used as communication to any advanced life because it is what we can communicate without words. And the amount of depth that we can get out of it, right? Because this is heavy. All comes down to how far we are willing to take it, how much we share with one another, how much we value one another to be able to share that, to be able to say, hey, I value you, I care for you before it is too late. Because many of us wait till when a person them dead, we got them funeral, we got them gravestone, and we're talking to air, trying to explain, and air cannot respond, it cannot tell us what we need to know initially. So it's important that we get it out before. Do it now, do it today. Make the time. It is very important because you never know. With all the fish in the sea, you might lose the most important, the most awesome experience of your life. That is it. Our quest through the universe of sci-fi television continues, and the next great milestone awaits. 2,000 downloads. Your support is the force that fuels this journey. Share, follow, and let your voice echo through the stars. Until we meet again, may wonder light your path and curiosity be your guide. This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.